Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. That there that you were listening to, that's Restream's AI version of Halloween music. Very entertaining. Just thought I'd have a wee change because yeah, not much else happening. To be honest, I've been rather. Oh, sorry, I forgot the welcome patter. Yeah, this is the Wednesday, 5th of November edition of A Proud Malcontent, and I am Pete Bell, and I am a proud malcontent. Okay, got that out of the way. What was I saying? Oh, yes. I've been kind of busy, distracted all this week and much of last week as well, preparing a presentation for the IFS convention, which is on Saturday. I still haven't finished it. I'll be polishing it on the bus going through to Glasgow, but that's just the usual way. So I haven't been paying all that much attention to the news during the week. I know some people died, some people were killed. There were some scandals. The UK government up a few things. Yeah, just the usual. Just the usual. I did take a glance at the national front page this morning, scrolled down it, and I thought, bloody hell, yes, it might be slit your throat, so it would. Gosh. So I resorted to the letters page, the community page, where yeah, there's generally something of interest. And first thing I lighted on was a letter from a friend of mine, Alan Magnus Bennett. Hi, Alan. Hope you're well. Let me just switch the chat on here in case anybody's wanting to speak to me, contact me. And Alan's letter, it caught my attention, to be honest, because the headline is Hopes for Independence Must Rest with Efforts at the United Nations. Now, this is where the thrill of repetition is on me, because this is where I have to tell the same story again. The United Nations effort will not lead to independence, not on its own. It is not a route to independence. It is something that is very useful to have running in tandem with an internal political and parliamentary process. In tandem with it, at some point they will come together. But that internal political and parliamentary process has to be there. It has to be in place. Otherwise, the UN effort accomplishes little or nothing. There has to be some arrangement in place here in Scotland, in our politics and in our parliament. There has to be some arrangement where there is somebody there who will pick up the UN finding. This is a bit we were talking about Scotland being listed as a non-self-governing territory, effectively a colony. But somebody here in Scotland has to pick that up and run with it. They have to actually make use of it. I can't see John Swinney doing that. I can't see an SNP government doing that. It's not part of their election strategy, so they're not interested. Does it help us get elected? Is a big question they ask, and the answer is no. So they're just not interested. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the SNP simply ignored it, as they do with so much else. So that was what caught my attention, and Alan writes an interesting letter as he usually does, and he references another really good letter writer that we've mentioned before on this show, James Murphy, and he's talking about the letter that James Murphy's, which I actually read out, was it last Wednesday? Not sure. Should have checked. Hey, Alan writes, we also know that we actually do not need Westminster's permission for our independence. Well, we know that, Alan. You and I know that. Lots of the people listening to this and watching this, they know that. However, the people who matter, the people with the power to do something about it, namely Scottish Government, they apparently aren't aware of that. In fact, they explicitly reject the idea that we don't need permission. They insist that we do, and they insist on asking, and we all know what that implies. The next one, my highlighter extension in Chrome has given up on me on this machine. I think there must be a fault in the installation of Chrome. I'll need to reinstall it. I usually have these passages highlighted so as I can find them quickly. This one's not too bad because it's the very next paragraph. As James Murphy points out, where he quotes the advisory opinion 2010 on Kosovo, that's the International Court of Justice opinion, paragraph 84, where it says, in general, international law contains no prohibition on declaration of independence. Effectively, they're saying that UDI has been suggested many times. Sorry, Alan says he's effectively declaring UDI, as has been suggested many times since 2014. Well, I'm not so sure about that, Alan. I'm not so sure it's been suggested many times. It's been mentioned a few times, I can recall, but one of the things that I liked about your letter, Alan, is that it talks just openly and normally about UDI, not afraid to mention UDI. Now, not that long ago, maybe a couple of years, 3 years ago, maybe 4. If you mentioned UDI, you'd be virtually burnt at the stake because they'd be down on you like a ton of bricks. Oh, no, you can't do UDI. International recognition. Oh, no. It wasn't until fairly recently that the term UDI came into general usage in our political discourse. Now it is very much part of that discourse. Alan finishes his letter. In the meantime, my thoughts and hopes rest with Salvo and Liberation Scotland with their input with the United Nations. With that support, Scotland has more chance of having its referendum, but without Westminster interference, than the now impossible route Swinney insists on taking. A few things worth remarking on there. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if it's just an impression that I've gained. Maybe it's selection bias, but I seem to be seeing a lot more people waking up to just how awful John Swinney's proposal is. The Swinney swindle, as I call it. It just won't work. It shouldn't be happening. In a sane world, it wouldn't be happening. What John Swinney is proposing wouldn't even occur to a proper Scottish nationalist government or a proper Scottish nationalist First Minister. Wouldn't be on the table. But it is, and there are more and more people prepared to say that it is, at best, a load of pish. In fact, it is treacherous and dangerous and can only do damage to Scotland's cause. So I'm again it, you'll have gathered. Back to Alan's letters, just for a moment. His final remark is, if a unilateral declaration of independence is required, then so be it. Scotland has waited long enough. Now is the time. And yeah, you'll get no disagreement from me on that, Alan, except for pointing out that we have to be kind of clever about the way we do it. UDI is not just the one thing. There's no sort of written down rules of what constitutes UDI. It's a very general term. And for every nation is different, because every nation is constitutionally unique. There may be similarities, there may be direct parallels here and there. There may be senses or aspects in which they're identical, but the situation as a whole, the constitutional circumstances as a whole, are different every time, and therefore the form that UDI takes has to be different every time. And in Scotland's case, particularly because, remember, we have been a colony, we've been annexed territory for far longer than any of the other nations that came under the heel of the British Empire. 318 years, to be precise. That's quite a long time. And so that alone makes the circumstances different, not least because the union and unionism and Britishism has had time to get embedded, thoroughly embedded. It's everywhere. It seeps right into the very roots of Scottish society. That is why you still find round about 20% of Scottish voters still want to keep the union. They're hard and fast unionists, hardline unionists. And that's because of the extent to which the British state has permeated Scottish culture, the whole of Scottish culture. I'm talking about here, not just political culture. So there's that, and there's the framework of the legal and constitutional framework that has developed over that time. And for that whole time, and for some time before, preserving the union, first of all, creating it, getting Scotland trapped. We have catched hold of Scotland. That was an imperative. And since the union, preserving the union has been an imperative for the British state. And as the empire collapsed around them, preserving the union, keeping hold of Scotland, just became more and more of an imperative. So it's inevitable, therefore, that the legal and constitutional framework developing under this imperative is impassable as far as any route to independence is concerned. There is no route to independence through that legal and constitutional framework. We have to break the rules to break the union. Simple as that. And so we're embedded. So that makes us a special case. So we have to be kind of clever about how we go about it. I'm quite convinced that a referendum, an election pretending to be a referendum isn't going to do it. It's not going to be nearly conclusive enough. Even if it's a win, it won't be conclusive. Even if it's a fairly big win, at least as big as the no win in 2014. Even if it was 55%, a de facto yes vote, it still wouldn't be conclusive enough. And I'm thinking forward. I'm thinking to after independence. And we want that decision when it comes, the choice to restore Scotland's independence. We want that to be conclusive. We want there to be absolutely no questioning it. It has to be unchallengeable. There will still be nutters on the unionist side, right out in the fringes, who will want to challenge it. But we should be making it as difficult as possible for them. So we should be aiming for a big vote, not a target, and not a special threshold or anything of that sort. But we should be aiming, obviously, for the biggest yes vote in a proper referendum, the biggest yes vote possible. But even more than that is that it has to be a proper constitutional referendum. And the only route to that, the only route known, the only route that has been set out is Scottish UDI. Because it goes the clever way. It goes by the rule that you break. You pick the rule and you pick the time to break it. That's the power that we have at the moment. We can pick which rule to break or to challenge, and we can pick the time. And the rule we should challenge is the rule that prevents us from exercising our right of self-determination. That's an easy one. That's an easy one to break. It's an easy one to challenge because our right of self-determination is inalienable. It managed it. It is a human right. So it's a very easy one to challenge. And there's a way of going about that. But the point is, you do it in a clever way. It's not just a straightforward declaration, unilateral declaration of independence. It's a Scottish unilateral declaration of independence. Ooh, managed to get that out. Right. If I'm talking quite a lot about this, it's probably because my mind is so taken up with this preparation for this presentation that I'm doing at the IFS convention on Saturday. They're giving it another plug, William. It's an important one for me. I suspect it may be the last chance I get to kind of put it out there with a decent audience, by which I mean an audience of independence supporters and independence supporters who are active and informed and critical. They will be critical. The Q&A session could get a little rough for me, but I don't mind that. It's a challenge, and I'm quite happy to face that challenge. But that's why I'm thinking about it so much. It may be my last chance. I don't mean I'm going to drop dead. Hopefully, I'll live long enough to do more. But the nearer the election gets, without any sign of anybody putting forward a decent, a true strategy for restoring Scotland's independence. I mean, any of the candidates or parties. I mean, so the nearer we get to the election, the less chance there is of it happening, and the less interest there's going to be in Scottish UDI, the Scottish UDI proposal. I just accept that. That's just the way it is. We had our chance. We've had several months of a chance. We've had the petition for the Manifesto for Independence has been running. It must be nearly a year. It's been running a long time anyway, and it simply hasn't attracted the support that it deserved. you would think that being the only solid proposal for restoring independence that there is out there, you would think people would snap it up, but no. Instead, they go flocking to whoever's got the best slogan, and of course they go flocking to the SNP, but as if they're just totally unaware of what the SNP has been made into. So this may on Saturday may be my last chance. So I'm kind of tense about it for that reason. I'm not bothered about standing up and speaking in front of an audience. That's never troubled me because I do preparation. But it's troubling me because I regard that as very important. The only other opportunities I've had to present this Scottish UDI before an audience has been at the Scottish Sovereignty Research Group conferences. The last two, I've had different forms of presentation at the SSRG conference, and that went down quite well. Unfortunately, the sound quality on that was pretty, on the recording of it, was pretty awful. It was horrendous, actually. I don't blame you if you don't want to listen to it. But I'm hoping we'll get something better on Saturday. It is being live streamed, and you'll find the link to the YouTube channel on last week's episode podcast on Substack, or I'll post it again somewhere on this one. I'll just keep posting it until Saturday, because I hope you'll watch, and I hope you'll watch just as much as I hope I don't make a total arse of myself by falling off the stage, for example, as I have been known to do. Some people will remember that little incident. And I was sober. Huh? But what's next? What we've got time for? Oh, we've plenty of time. I could rattle on for ages yet. What have next? It's actually, oh yes, this is to do with what was in the blurb for this show. Is it's to do with the spoil your vote or repurpose your vote campaign that I've been toying with. I'm not really running any campaign. I did last year for the 2024 UK general election. I tried quite vigorously last year to get people to simply write "End the Union" across their ballot, because this is Scotland. Your votes in a Westminster election mean nothing, mean absolutely nothing. So you could easily afford to be part of a spoil your vote campaign or repurpose your vote. I prefer repurpose, but you can't put repurpose your vote. Well, you can, but repurpose it should have a hyphen. It should be re-purpose, and you can't put a hyphen in a hashtag. So I'm slightly uncomfortable with putting it in a hashtag, a hyphenless, because I'm a bit of a maven when it comes to spelling, punctuation, grammar, and such like. So, but spoil your vote. I was referencing the. Excuse me a moment. I was referencing the Irish presidential election, which was just a couple of weeks ago. And for reasons entirely different to mine, and being supported by people whose politics I would not wish to be associated with. But they ran this campaign. This "Make your vote roar" was one of their slogans, which I really like, and I would be happy to pinch that and use it for a campaign here in Scotland. But their campaign was very effective. I got immediately very smug, and I got to see, tell ye, it could work. So lots of people were saying no, it couldn't work, and uh, but it did work. The number of spoilt ballots increased tenfold or more, and that was noticed, obviously. And because there was a campaign, the campaign was blamed or credited, depending on your perspective, with causing this. So the people, they wanted this to get noticed. The fact that there was no candidate in the presidential election that represented their interests, their political agenda. Secretly, I'm quite glad that there wasn't. But no, it's a democracy. Those people are entitled to representation at all. So they had a case. Even if I don't much like their politics, I have to say they had a case. And like I say, their campaign was very effective. It got noticed, and that was the big topic of conversation. Not the election itself or the winner or any of the. Well, there were only two candidates, three on the ballot paper, but one had withdrawn. It was the spoilt votes that were the big topic of conversation and the campaign. And I can see that is likely to have triggered something. There was a previous one in Russia, which I referenced last year. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but there was a previous example where there was a mass spoil your ballot campaign, which was successful, effective. But that wasn't, it's Russia, so people were sort of looking askance at it. But we're talking Ireland here. We're talking a proper democracy. So when a campaign like that works, and it kind of breaks the system, is people doing things differently. Is people not following the rules that say, oh, you've got to vote for one of these parties. That's your choice. That is it. And for each of them, whatever they're offering you, that is your choice. That's it. It doesn't matter what you actually want. You have to take what you're given, and you have to choose one of them. Otherwise, you're not a proper citizen. You're sitting on your arse at home when you should be voting. I don't like not voting. Uh, so that's why the idea of spoil your vote appeals to me, because it's like the none of the above, which has been suggested a lot of times, that there should be a none of the above choice on the ballot. But in the absence of that, the spoil your votes campaign seems perfectly sensible, especially if everybody spoils their vote in exactly the same way, which didn't happen in Ireland. And I think that kind of softens the message, dilutes it. Where everybody writes exactly the same thing on their ballot to spoil it, written just diagonally across the ballot, making sure it's not all or mainly against one name, because it could count as a vote. Big letters diagonally across the ballot. Everybody writes the same thing, then it is obviously a coordinated campaign. And it's the fact that it's a coordinated campaign that has the impact. I think the Irish one would have had more impact if they had organised it so that everybody wrote the same thing. Anyway, I've been toying with this idea, just sort of testing the waters. To be frank, I am not keen on running any more of these one-man campaigns. I usually get some support, some people helping with aspects of it, but it's still a lot of work, and it's still a big commitment, and I'm really just not up for it. I'm barely up for uh, advocating, promoting Scottish UDI. I'm struggling with that. So I'm not keen on taking on anything else. But make your Roar Vote campaign seems like quite a good idea. I've been toying with it. I've mentioned it a couple of times. And I mentioned it on Facebook. Well, I mentioned it when I put up the promo for today's show, in which I said, "Oh no, I've lost." Excuse me a moment. I've lost my screen. There, I have it back now. Yeah. In the promo for today's show, he said, quickly backtracking and wishing he could go on to the next scene. And there it is. That's my post on Facebook. And amid growing discontent with Swinney's swindle, as more and more people realise the treacherous idiocy of the SNP's offering on independence, I continue to toy with the idea of a spoil your vote campaign, similar to the one that caused a bit of an upset in the recent Irish presidential election. What other option do we have? As ever, comments are welcome. I should mention that. And there's a standing invitation to anyone who would like to come on the show and defend John Swinney's proposal or suggest an alternative. So there's me just giving a little mention, and wow, did I get did I get the very kind of response that I predicted from my old sparring partner, Fraser Darling. Sorry, I have to laugh at this. It's really good. He says, "What an utterly idiotic plan. How many unionists do you think will be joining you on your Throw Your Vote Away campaign? None. 4 exclamation marks. Never more than 3, Fraser. 3 maximum. No. All that this daft suggestion will do is harm the independence cause and help the unionist one. With friends like these, who needs enemies?" Aye. Yeah, calm yourself, Fraser, calm yourself. Now, that is it's a typical knee-jerk reaction. I got that, obviously, I got that a lot last year when I was promoted for the UK general election, and on that at that time, I went to some trouble to say to people that it wouldn't work for a Scottish election. I wasn't even considering it in the context of a Scottish general election. Well, now I have considered it, or I am considering it, the pros and cons. And what is disappointing, very disappointing about responses such as Fraser's, is that there isn't an argument in there. There's not a thoughtful argument. It is just a knee-jerk reaction. The very, very typical, almost boilerplate knee-jerk reaction. If somebody doesn't like something you say, they say, "Oh, you're not helping the independence campaign, you're helping the unionists." That is not an argument. demonstrate how it helps the unionists, fine, that is an argument. But just saying it helps the unionists, that's not an argument. And the bit about how many unionists do you think will be joining you on your Throw Your Vote Away campaign? Of course, it never even occurred to me that any unionists would join in it until the very moment when Fraser suggested it. And that really made me laugh, the thought of unionists joining in. Now, that really is an idiotic idea. So I did respond to that, and gird your loins, because I didn't go easy on him, but he's a big boy, he can take it. Yeah. So I'm just going to respond rather than pick bits from it. Fraser, darling, you must get that all the time. Sorry, pal. You really should try to avoid these mindless knee-jerk responses. Maybe try being a bit more open-minded, a bit less bigoted, a bit more thoughtful, a bit less shallow. Here's a wee tip for you, Si. When engaged in debate, I'll be generous and assume that's what you're striving for. Always attempt to argue yourself out of your initial reaction. You will be better equipped for the debate if you have examined the matter from different perspectives. As an example of the things you might have thought of had you bothered to think at all, consider who would be most likely to participate in a Spoil Your Vote campaign. It would seem likely that its greatest appeal would be to people who otherwise wouldn't vote at all. The people who, unlike yourself, have already realised that there is no way to vote in the 2026 election which actually aids Scotland's cause. Perhaps those who have been put off by the monomaniacal ranting of dumb party loyalists. People who are just plain sick of politics as normal. The very sort of people who are tending towards Reform UK. Through your own thoughtlessness, you've come across as someone who wants Reform UK to get as many votes as possible. That's the price of foolishness. That's helping unionists. Reflect for a moment on your spastic assumption that doing things differently must inevitably harm Scotland's cause. What harm? Going by the best information available, the SNP is going to win the largest part of the constituency vote. Enough seats to ensure another nominally pro-independence government, and, together with the Greens, a nominally pro-independence parliamentary majority. The polls tell us that is all but in the bag. So, what harm can possibly be done by voting for Scotland's cause in the only way you can, by writing "End the Union" across your regional ballot? That is much more evidently a vote for independence than voting for Alpa Party or any of the other nominally pro-independence parties, and very much more evidently a vote for independence than voting for the SNP, which isn't even standing on a manifesto for independence. What you're missing, due to your aversion to thinking, is that these spoilt ballots still count as votes for independence. Isn't that what the list vote is supposed to be getting used for? Isn't it supposed to be a plebiscite on independence in which the votes for all the nominally pro-independence parties are aggregated? If, say, the Spoil Your Vote campaign matched the success of the Irish one, that would be 13% of the vote. That's added to the votes for the nominally pro-independence parties. If you think about it, It's taking mostly Reform UK votes and abstentions and turning them into votes for independence. And you're dead against it. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Right. I think I've made the point there that there are solid arguments, but for spoil your vote, or make your vote roar campaign, arguments which Fraser seemed to miss entirely because he went for this knee-jerk reaction. And in fact, when you think about it, it really isn't going to do that much harm. Not when we judge the situation by the best information we have, which is the polls. I'm not looking to get every single pro-independence voter joining in, participating with this campaign. I'm not. That's pointless. That's not going to happen. The party loyalists won't join in for a start. So the Irish did well getting 13%. I see no reason why we couldn't get that. And the whole point of it is that it is breaking the rules. It is upsetting the system. It is causing a major upset. If there's a campaign like that, it gets noticed. Can't help but get noticed. There's a chance, if it was big enough, there was a chance that the media would even ask John Swinney about it. There. It might have to be more than 13% for that to happen, but yeah, anything's possible. No, it isn't, but a big turnout, a large support for Make Your Vote Roar campaign is possible, and it would make a mark, and we really need to make a mark. Voting in the normal way just doesn't make a mark. It doesn't shake up anything. And things really need to be shaken up. That's Reform UK's line. Reform UK, that's their whole credo. We want to shake things up. We want to break things and remake things. We just want to tear things down. We're against this and we're against that. But what are your constructive policies? Well, we'll get to them in due course. No, I'm not suggesting this is in a destructive way. I'm suggesting that we be disruptors. Think of it as a form of civil disobedience, direct action. If we do something that causes a bit of an upset, something different, we'll at least start getting noticed. And there's another point about a campaign like this. If it succeeds, if the independence movement sees the success of a campaign like that, where people unite, or I'd rather use the word combine, where people combine to make a campaign effective, they combine for a common purpose, they have unity. It works, it gets something done. It's maybe not something very much, but it gets something done. And that is important. Sorry, I've left you looking at that screen. I'm not sure why. Anyway, here I am. So yeah, so that is the kind of encouragement that the independence movement needs. Everybody keeps talking about how the independence movement has to unite. Nominally pro-independence parties have to unite. Well, that's not going to happen. It was never going to happen. people have been saying it day in and day out for the last 11 years. It's no closer now than it ever was, and it never will be. You'll get pretending wee alliances like SNP and Believe in Scotland, but it's not really an alliance. That's just John Swinney having a stab at drawing Gordon McIntyre Kemp into his circle, where he'll be controllable. I don't suspect he'll have all that much success with Gordon McIntyre Kemp. But they're not good. There's not going to be that kind of unity, unity of amalgamation, in the sense of amalgamation. It's not going to happen. There's too many things working against it, and it wouldn't last anyway. In the heat of an election campaign, no chance. It just wouldn't last. So we need another way of combining. And especially the independence movement. Never mind the parties; let them do their thing. The movement needs to look after its own agenda, and forget just following the parties' agendas, this one or that one. We have to create our own agenda and follow that. We don't have to pick and choose from what's on offer. Right, we can do something for ourselves, and Make Your Vote Roar campaign demonstrates how we do something for ourselves and do something different. And there's a fair chance that that could snowball, that the next time there's a suggestion for a campaign that needs a lot of participation, mass participation, it might just get better results. These things grow on one another. They create a momentum. You need look no further than 2012, 2013, and what happened with the Yes movement. Every little success, every 2%, 2 percentage point increase in the support for Yes, or every event that was attended, full house, all of these successes encouraged others until it was certainly the biggest, possibly the biggest democratic movement in Europe in the 21st century. I suspect there's people in Catalonia who would argue the toss on that one. So let's just say it was one of the biggest, and it was by UK standards and by Scottish standards, it was huge. It was massive. It far outstripped anything that the No campaign could put together. So it does work. If there's a common purpose, which back then was getting that yes vote in the referendum. It was a sham referendum. The yes vote wouldn't have made any difference, but it gave us that common purpose. And so long as we had that common purpose, we had unity of purpose. And then you saw what happened after the referendum. Not immediately after, because immediately after we still had momentum, and there was a reaction to the vote and a reaction to David Cameron's reaction to the vote, which kept that momentum going through at least the first half of 2015, and that momentum was lost, and you know who is responsible for that. And that was the start of the decline. That was the start of the independence movement beginning to fragment. It had always been made up of separate groups and organizations, but it hadn't been fragmented because because there was unity of purpose. They weren't all combined into one organisation, but there was unity of purpose. But they began to fragment in the sense that they divided, they separated, and various parties and groups started developing their own internal agendas, and others had rival agendas, and they started spats about this and that. And they kept old spats going, such about EU or currency or whatever. And these things developed because there was no common purpose for everybody to latch on to. That was missing. Nicola Sturgeon could have chosen to create that common purpose. In 2015, she could have turned around and said, this is not the end. There will be another referendum. It will be a different referendum, and it will be, we've penciled in the date for September 2018. Now, if she'd said that, or something along those lines, actually set a date, given something that was firm, that was going to happen in the future, something to aim for. If she had done that, then the cohesion of the movement might have lasted longer. It might have been sustained. The momentum that we had at the beginning of 2015 might have been sustained. If it had been sustained through 2015, we then get to 2016 and the EU referendum and everything that flowed from that. And there's another push to give us more momentum, to carry us through to 2017 when we start the campaign for the 2018 referendum. The whole thing could have been kept together and it could have been kept going. I'm not saying it would have been easy. It certainly wouldn't have been easy. But one thing that the Yes movement proved during the campaign for the 2014 referendum, we weren't afraid of the work. People went out and did the work. Thousands of people all over Scotland went out and did the work. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The work would have been done, and the money would have been there. That's another thing that the Yes movement's always been good for. If there was something worthwhile, and there's some kind of crowdfunder or fundraiser for it, the Yes movement as a whole would always find that money. The upset with, say no more than that, the upset with the SNP's finances did have an impact. We can't deny that. But in general, the Yes movement has always come up with the cash. So that these things are not a worry. If the political will had been there, the backing for that was there. It was there in 2015. It was there maybe through 2015, but it was starting to break down at that point. And I'm afraid when that starts to happen, when you get factionalism setting in, and you get tribalism raising its ugly head, I'm tempted to say it's impossible to rectify that. It's impossible to go back. Reason for that, partly because nobody sees their own tribalism. They always see the tribalism of others, but they never see their own. And I say to them, for tribalism to exist, there has to be two tribes. And if you're saying that's one, then you're another one. That's the way it works. But once that sets in, it's almost impossible to eradicate. I suspect a campaign for a proper constitutional referendum, I suspect that might go a long way to creating that unity of purpose. And that a lot of the agendas and personalities would be set aside, and there would be something similar to the Yes movement of 2012, 2013. But it would be adequate. I'm certain of that. It would be adequate if there was that unity of purpose. It would be sufficient, because it would have to be a different kind of campaign. The constitutional issue is a national issue. Therefore, the campaign has to run at national level. For the 2014 campaign, it was like there were lots of little campaigns. They were effective because there were so many of them. It's just like the SNP has always been famed for its effective election machinery for winning elections. But it wasn't effective because the SNP had a brilliant strategy. It was effective because they could put so many feet on the ground and so many foot soldiers out there delivering leaflets, knocking doors, canvassing. That was back in the days when that was the way to do elections. And the SNP could just, I mean, I'd been part of it in the past, and there have been hundreds of people out on the streets of a town all at in the same evening. Yeah, it was quite remarkable. But it was the weight of numbers that did it. And the same is true for the Yes campaign. It was the weight of numbers that carried us through that. That's not going to do us again. It has to be a different kind of campaign, a single, focused national campaign with local events, but nationally coordinated. However, that's us just about out of time. So I hope I've said something that interests you in the past, or something that piques your interest. It's obviously not piqued anybody's interest enough for them to make a comment. However, I'll be back on Sunday when, I'll be inevitably, I'll be talking about Saturday's IFS convention on Sunday, and I might be a bit hoarse come Sunday, but that's what I'll be talking about. And our friend Stephen Duncan will be here with the Confute Corner, and I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if we've even decided what it's going to be about. So that'll be a surprise. That's Sunday. I'm away back to prepare my presentation. For the moment, goodbye.